Today is Wednesday, September the 11th, 2024. And this message is targeted for people who consider themselves sovereign citizens, but is important for everyone to hear for reasons that will become obvious after you've watched the video. The first thing that I want to say before I get into this is that I am perfectly aware and understand fully that both our legal and judicial system and our corrections and rehabilitative systems in 2024 are severely broken and inadequate and do not serve the purpose for which they were designed. The problem is that we live in an anti-social society that is socially controlled by administrators. And because our society is not relationship based, all of our legal processes are punitive. They're always about punishing people as a form of discipline so that they are deterred from doing things that are not aligned with the social administration, instead of helping people to understand how the things that they do not only impact the victims of their behavior, but also ultimately will impact them directly, because everything is interconnected. Even if it doesn't affect you immediately, eventually it will come back to hurt you and what is important to you personally, because that's how it works. Because you can't have one person become harmed or hurt and there not be residual effects of that harm, even if you are not the direct recipient of it initially. And I hope that makes sense to someone. When you look at restorative justice in terms of how can we bring a resolution to the situation so that we walk away from it with no hard feelings, even if you can't be friends initially, because the healing work has to be done around what happened. What can we do to ensure that neither of you feels like you need to take this any further or enact revenge or anything like that, because you are fully heard and have restored to you in the best of our ability what was taken, or are provided what is necessary for you to recover from what happened to you? When you approach restorative justice that way, you move towards a functional society where people can live freely amongst each other without fear of being harmed or retribution for harm for which they have worked to atone or to restore whatever it is they have broken. And this is what I have meant when I said that people must have a suitable offering, because it is difficult for someone to forgive and then even trust someone who has demonstrated or shown no remorse or provided any evidence that they want to make right whatever it is that they did wrong. Of course, a huge part of this is being able to fully expose the truth of the situation. It makes it a lot easier when people simply come forward and admit what they know they have done, which has caused harm or loss for someone. The problem is, because of the way our system is designed, people not only do hide, they are encouraged to hide the things that they have done and the things that have been done to them. The result is a bunch of broken, traumatized people who then therefore go around breaking and traumatizing other people. No one is above the law. But I want to deal with this idea of sovereign citizenship in a context that brings those who have lost their grip on reality into the reality of the legal process as it currently is, as well as to help people understand the aspects of some of this sovereign citizenship that is perfectly legitimate and probably requires some further investigation to get the government to release the stronghold of economics and monetary finance as a way of oppressing people in this country. I posted this to Facebook yesterday, September the 10th. So just to explain to folks, but I want to make sure that I say to people that when it comes to being summoned to court, we are not built the same, meaning myself versus people who use this type of citizenship as a protective measure. For people who are trying to avoid being held accountable for their actions, it would be stupid to believe that any of this means that you will get away with it when you have clearly harmed someone or deprived them of what rightfully belongs to them. When you write this stuff or file these kinds of documents, you need to be of the mindset that you are so thoroughly certain that your personal human rights, not civil rights, have been violated, that it's as if you dare the courts to call you on your statement or your filing legally. If you're trying to avoid being held accountable for something that you clearly did and for which someone who actually understands this legal code and how to apply it correctly to your specific and unique circumstances has not told you, yes, you have a valid complaint, then know that you will have set yourself up not only to be charged, but to be humiliated in a court proceeding. Or even worse, if you try to use this stuff during a traffic stop in an isolated location. Please don't be that stupid. Before you go further, I'd like to invite you to watch the video Attack on Awareness Campaigns number 6, The Governors of Defense and Judicial System, because it includes a history lesson that is inclusive of the Mayflower Compact, which your understanding of will make this video easier to follow. Assuming now that you have watched the video about the Mayflower, I want you to actually look at and read the Bill of Rights, because it is a document designed to give people enough legroom to do what they want and not be held fully accountable for their actions. It protects people who get caught. The First Amendment gives people the right to freedom, which is defined as to speak, to practice any religion they want, to press, which is like journalism, or to report information, which could also be propaganda, and to assemble together. Then there's the right to carry a gun or to bear arms, which means to be able to fight with weapons. The third means that you cannot have troops staying with you who are fighting against the government. So it's important that you put that into perspective. It's saying you can't harbor any troops. If they are called into service to war, then they should be at war, and you cannot harbor them in your home. Then there's a right to unreasonable search and seizure. So you have to go through a process to be able to check to see if somebody stole something or has something in their possession that is illegal. The Fifth Amendment protects citizens who are being accused of a crime by saying that they are innocent until they are proven guilty. So if someone actually did it, then until you take them to trial and can prove it, they're to be considered innocent and able to go on about their lives. The Sixth Amendment is the right to a fair and speedy trial. So right away, they know that they're going to be court proceedings because our government is heavily driven by laws and legislature, which is not always fair and equitable. Then the Seventh Amendment is a right to a trial by jury, meaning that it can't just be between a judge as an impartial party and the two people who have a complaint. We want to be able to bring in people who must not have a reasonable doubt in order for you to be able to say, I'm guilty or not guilty. Then you have the Eighth Amendment, which protects from cruel and unusual punishment in the event that you are found guilty and convicted. The Ninth Amendment protects for any rights that are not listed in the Constitution. So as a result of this, there are lots and lots more amendments and articles and clauses which make the legal process more complex, because just following those amendments that are in the initial Constitution, they wanted to be able to say, well, there are going to be some things that aren't covered in the Constitution that should cover me if I get caught. And the 10th Amendment The power not given to the federal government that belongs to the states and to the people. So we're going to have this federal government, but we also still want states to be able to have the right to say what they want to say in terms of whatever the centralized government wants to enact anywhere, which makes sense. It should help keep peace, but we know in 2024 that's not the case. Here's the reference for the constitutional article related to the militia mentioned earlier. Assuming that you did take the time to pause and read the Facebook post at the beginning of this video, I'm going to share now all of the 7-page text of the document that I linked in that post. I do this because I am perfectly aware, especially for those who use their cell phones primarily and are also then restricted to using apps to access some information, that their ability to access some of the links that I share and even the YouTube videos I share cannot be done, which is why I also include the URLs for my YouTube videos, because sometimes if you try to link through the app, you can't get to the video, but if you use it or try to access via your browser, you can see it. So here is the entirety of the article for you to pause and review. Just know that if you are not part of a government-sponsored group or militia, covertly, most of this will not apply to you. In a fair and impartial court, these are the only 3 questions that must be answered in order to establish guilt or innocence. And these will only work if the judicial system is designed to provide restorative justice while at the same time providing corrective rehabilitation that will support an individual learning what they need to understand in order to avoid making the same choice and therefore behaving in ways that cause the same type of damage again. Were you aware you have caused harm to someone? Once made aware, did you continue, or if in a supervisory or managerial role, did you allow harm to continue? If you weren't directly involved, are you in collusion, meaning that you know it's happening and then continue to enable it happening? If you are not in collusion, do you have evidence of your attempts to warn, prevent, or protect the victims from harm? If you weren't aware, corrective action would include making you fully aware of the harm you caused and how what you did contributed to the person suffering a harm or loss. If you've allowed it to continue, then the corrective action would be to understand why you would allow it to continue, how allowing it to continue served you, and whether or not there is an unmet need or a harm being caused to you that needs to be addressed. Being in collusion could be caused by numerous things, but the corrective action would be to help you to understand how not holding accountable the people in your care contributes to other people being harmed, even though it may not initially harm you directly. I hope this all makes sense to people and gives you a more realistic perspective of what justice looks like, because the only way we can all feel free is if 100% of the people agree to do no intentional harm 100% of the time, and that 100% of the children and their biological parents and families feel safe, protected, healthy, and happy. The only way to get there is for each individual person to either be self-accountable or to be held fully accountable. Full, honest disclosure is always necessary.